Okay, we're going to do some more quotes from the book Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes. We're going in alphabetical order. We're on letter D with Joan Didion. She was an American writer, 1934 to 2021. She had a real sad thing where her husband died kind of suddenly. Just a few quotes from her. We tell ourselves stories in order to live. The ability to think for oneself depends upon one's mastery of the language. That one has a lot of truth in it. I've seen a lot of people who've been treated very unfairly. And the ones who aren't in the habit of reading and writing, they're not able to articulate themselves well. They can't write a good letter. They can't, set up a system of logical arguments. So they can't really defend themselves very well. And they don't usually have much money. So they get screwed over and there's nothing they could do about it. So one of the benefits of being articulate, you at least have a chance to respond with a good, logical, rhetorical argument and to seek somebody to help you that you can explain to them what really happened. You get a better chance to make money as well. So it's well worth your time to read and be articulate. Okay, Joan Didion, you go with what you've got or you don't go. Yeah, you have to accept the fact in life. A lot of times you're half screwed, but at least you're not totally screwed. I think a perfect example is look at me with my medical YouTube channel and my books. I'm totally ostracized. Conventional medicine, from the popular vegan channels, from everything. From society, and all for good reasons. And so there's nothing I could do about that, but it's better to, like I said, I'd rather have 200 views on the best video in the world that I make about some medical topic than have none. So I just do it anyways. But you just have to go with what you've got. Otherwise, you don't do anything. Okay? Joan Didion, writing nonfiction is more like sculpture, a matter of shaping the research into a finished writing. Yeah, I've had that feeling before. Grammar is a piano I play by ear. Yeah, I think the best writers should just go with what feels right, and that ends up being the best thing. Most of the rules are kind of stupid. Okay, Denis Diderot, he's a guy, one of the philosophes, the French sort of atheistic philosophers of the 1700s. He lived from 1713 to 1784. And in my opinion, he's another one of these scumbags. Like Voltaire at least did a few good things. Voltaire did do some nice things in his personal life, even though the net result of his work was mostly to be a jerk. Voltaire was very funny. So l'esprit de l'escalier just means staircase wit. You think about it later after you're on the staircase walking out of the place where you had the discussion. Okay, Diderot, from fanaticism to barbarism is only one step. Yeah, he should know. The philosophers sort of got France all worked up into the chaos of 1789 to 1794, and what a disaster that was. Again, that was just an atheistic disaster with 50,000 heads at the bottom of a teen disaster. Okay. Here's a good quote from him. I do like this quote. It is often necessary to give wisdom an air of foolishness to procure its entry. That's the other thing too. You have to joke about some things because if you just say them straight out, you will get physically beaten up or you'll get in big trouble. The truth has become very unpopular, much more so than it was when I was younger, but that's kind of always the case because powerful people tend to benefit from lies, so they don't like the low-life proles telling the truth about stuff. Okay, next one is Annie Dillard. She's an American writer. She's still alive. She was born in 1945. And here she says, let's go with her quotes. How we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. So yeah, try to have a good daily routine. And I would say the most important thing is figure out a goal for yourself, what you want to do with your life. You got to spend 1/3 asleep. You got to spend 1/3 making money. And then you have only 1/3 or even a little less than that of your time that's free. So you got to decide what you want to do with that. And you should have a personal goal. You should have like an academic or a work goal, whatever that might be. And you should also have, physical goals to maintain your health and stuff, health goals. But planning that day is real important. And a lot of people, like myself, I'm a good example. I sort of planned my academic goals, but I forgot to plan my social goals. They sort of happened by accident. And I would have been better off if I planned them carefully. I also should have planned my financial goals. I think that's a good way to structure it. What's your career goals? What's your financial goals? And what's your social goals? Because I just figured the social would take care of itself, I ended up not having as good a social situation as I should have. And because I also thought the money would take care of itself. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm much better off than 99% of the population, but I'm much worse off I was than my father. My father, I'm twice as smart as him, but my father made twice as much money as I do. That's also because back in the 1980s, Doctors got paid, like double or triple what they get paid now. Okay, let's see. Annie Dillard continues. Adverbs are a sign that you've used the wrong verb. What you need is not two words, but a stronger word. Not he walked unsteadily, but he staggered. A schedule defends from chaos and whim. Yeah, I would say the most important thing about a schedule is as soon as you wake up in the morning, sit down in your chair and get to work. If you ever want to achieve anything academically, I think that's like just about the most important rule. Have clear-cut goals to pursue them and always be trying to learn a little something. And as soon as you wake up in the morning on a day off, sit your butt in the chair and get to work. Okay. We're continuing with Anne Dillard, the writer. When I teach, I preach. I thump the Bible. I exhort my students morally. I talk to them about a dedicated life. I work mornings only. A lot of writers, they can only write in the morning. They just don't have the mental with it to continue later in the day. Be careful what you learn, for that is what you will know. The novel is a game or a joke shared between the writer and the reader. The more you read, the more you will write. That's a good one, and I know that's true. If you're reading a lot, you keep on generating new ideas, and that motivates you to keep writing. Whereas if you're not reading, then you you go into your own thoughts, and unless something's happening in your personal life, you kind of are in a fixed spot. So reading really helps generate ideas because you sit there and you ask yourself, you're like having a conversation with the writer. Are they right? Are they correct? Does that make you want to look up? Are they wrong? Does that make you want to look up something else? The better stuff you read, the better stuff you will write. Yeah, and you don't have much time, so you don't want to waste time reading something unless it's good. Anything that you do not give freely and abundantly will become lost to you. Well, there's a lot of truth in that, in the sense that you get a hot idea, and it's really a good idea to sit down and write out a quick video. Because I do that all the time. I'll have a great idea when I'm driving in the car or something, and I'll just scratch a little note when I get at the stoplight. And then when I come home, I try to make that video right away because I know I might not remember it later. Or I might not have that feeling later. So while the emotion is hot in you, so to speak, make the video. Or, if you know you're not going to have much time, but let's say you're planning to write a bigger book, write a quick paragraph or whatever it is. Get it down on paper, put a subheading title on it so you know what it is when you come back to it. Have it in a way you can find it. Have a word processor file for whatever you're interested in. Diabetes, hypertension, atherosclerosis, or other topics, whatever it is. Okay, let's see. Writing a book is like raising children. You do it out of love. Okay, well, the reason you write a book is you feel that the book needs to be written, that no one else has really covered that subject well. Most books stink. They're really like a sales pitch for some nonsense, but a good book is because the author felt it was important to put this down on paper. And a lot of times, too, I like books written by old people when they're sort of getting ready to retire, because they're no longer that concerned about peer pressure or pissing people off or losing their jobs. They just want to tell the truth about the legacy of what they studied the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And a lot of times they put everything together, and those books are really valuable. Okay, look at Gregory Sloop. He just wrote his book a couple years ago, and then he died because he had severe chronic long-term pulmonary disease. So it's good that he got his book done before he got too sick to finish it. Putting a book together is interesting and exhilarating. It is sufficiently difficult and complex that it engages all of your intelligence. It is life at its most free. If you are fortunate enough to be able to try it, because you select your materials, you invent your task, and you pace yourself. Out of the entire human population of 4.5 billion, perhaps 20 can write a serious book in a year. Yeah, you don't meet too many people that have written a book. And most books written are garbage books. There's not that many good books written. Nietzsche, like Emerson, took 2 long walks a day. Okay, Schopenhauer has the best book ever about how to write a great book, The Art of Literature. Okay, Nietzsche, like Emerson, took 2 long walks a day. Yeah, Thomas Jefferson was also famous for liking to walk, and Robert Frost. Okay, the writer must be sufficiently excited to rouse himself to the task at hand. The task was to change intellectual passion to physical energy and some sort of narrative mastery from a standing start. Write as if you were dying, what you would begin writing if you knew you would die soon. Yeah, you have to motivate yourself to tell the truth as much as you possibly can. There's some stuff you can't say as a writer. You'll just get in too much trouble. You can't tell the truth about a lot of bad, evil people because they still have too much power and ability to hurt you. But you tell as much truth as you can to help the reader. You do the best you can to help the reader. And you always tell them the truth. If you can't talk about something, just don't talk about it, but don't lie to them. That's sort of my advice about a writer. Let's see, what else? The writer knows his field. The writer knows what has been done in that field and what could be done. They know the limits of the field, the way a tennis player knows the court. And that's true. That's when you're an expert, you should know that. Only after the writer lets literature shape him can he perhaps shape literature. Okay? Yeah, that's also true. That you have to read a lot to begin to see things in a holistic way and be able to compare things. It makes more sense to write one book, a novel or a nonfiction narrative, than to write many stories or essays. Into a long, ambitious project, you can fit or pour all that you possess and learn. Much of those years reading will feed the work. Yep. The key is you got to keep notes of like the best quotes from whatever it is you've been reading so you know how to get back to them. That's why I keep this quote notebook. I use it all the time for other topics, you know. Okay, Annie Dillard continues. One of the things I know about writing is this. Spend it all. Play it. All right away every time. Do not hoard what seems good for a later place in the book or for another book. Give it all. Give it right now. The impulse to save something for a better place later. The impulse to save something good for a better place later is the signal to spend it now. Something more will arise later, something better. Anything you do not give freely and abundantly becomes lost to you. Yeah, when you're in the heat of a moment and you have a funny story, a funny joke, tell it right away to your friend. Put it right away into your book chapter, because otherwise you'll lose that heat of the moment and you won't have all the details that made it so funny, the context, the moment, okay? So that's good advice for writers. A lot of times something happens in the day, you hear a song and you're like, gee, I can make a parody of that. Well, make it that day, otherwise you'll never do it. Annie Dillard continues, if you ask a 21-year-old poet whose poetry he likes, he might say unblushing, nobody's. In his youth, he has not yet understood that poets like poetry and novelists like novels. He only likes himself in the role. Okay, she continues. The writer studies literature, not the world. He is careful of what he reads, for that is what he will write. Okay. Okay, Anne Dillard continues. Why are we reading if not in hope that the writer will magnify and dramatize our days, illuminate and inspire us with wisdom, courage, and the possibility of meaningfulness, and will press upon our minds the deepest mystery so that we may feel again their majesty and power? We still and always want waking. Push it. Examine all things intensely and relentlessly. Probe and search each object in a piece of art. Follow it down until you see in it the mystery of its own specificity and strength. Okay, so anyways, there were some decent quotes. The best thing I got out of Annie Dillard was, when the moment is hot, when the iron is hot, that's when you got to do it. You got to write that paragraph, write that chapter, write that joke, make that video when the idea is fresh in your mind. Otherwise, you won't do anything. For Diderot, the best one was, a lot of times you have to come in with a joke. Otherwise, you'll get squashed right from the beginning. They won't even let you speak. Oscar Wilde said pretty much the same thing. If you're going to criticize somebody, you better make them laugh or they might kill you. Okay, Joan Didion. Probably your best quote was this one. You go with what you got or you don't go. Yeah, you have to just say, I'm going to do this, even though you know the odds are stacked against you. If you know it's worth doing, you just get it done, no matter what the constraints are. So anyways, hope that was helpful.